My name is Dylan Mercer. I'm 35 years old, and up until a year ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I was working as an IT analyst in Spokane, Washington. Nothing glamorous, but it was steady work. Good benefits, decent salary. The kind of job that lets you sleep at night without checking your bank account first thing in the morning. I was engaged to Kendra Hale. She was 32, worked in marketing for a local firm, and we'd been living together for 2 years. We got engaged 8 months before everything fell apart. She used to say she wanted to grow together with someone. She'd say it during dinners, during long drives, whenever we talked about the future. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Then the merger happened. My company got absorbed by a bigger corporation out of Seattle. They kept about 40% of the staff. I wasn't in that 40%. Just like that, after 6 years, I was out. 2 weeks severance and a generic email. I remember sitting in my car in the parking lot, staring at that email, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do next. I didn't panic. I started looking for work immediately. Freelance platforms, network contacts, anything in my field. The problem was half of Spokane's tech sector was consolidating at once. Everyone was hiring, but no one was actually bringing people on. So I adapted. I sold my car. It was a 2019 Honda Accord. Nothing fancy, but it cleared about $11,000. That bought me time. I started taking on small IT contracts from home. Remote server maintenance, network troubleshooting, basic web development. It wasn't glamorous, and it sure as hell wasn't what I wanted to be doing at 35, but it kept the lights on. Kendra didn't see it that way. At first, she was supportive, or at least she pretended to be. She'd ask how the job search was going, tell me things would turn around soon. But I could feel the shift. It was in the way she looked at me when I was working at the kitchen table instead of commuting to an office. The way she stopped talking about wedding venues and started talking about taking things one step at a time. The conversations got shorter. The silences got longer. She started working late more often. Started going out with friends on weekends without inviting me along. I didn't push it. I figured she needed space, and honestly, I was too focused on trying to keep us afloat financially to fight about it. Then came that Tuesday morning in early October 2024. I was sitting at my laptop finishing up a contract for a small business in Coeur d'Alene. Kendra walked into the living room, already dressed for work, coffee in hand. She sat down on the couch across from me. I looked up, expecting her to say goodbye like she usually did. Instead, she just stared at me for a moment. Then she said it. I can't stay tied to someone with no future. No build-up, no discussion, just that one sentence, delivered like she was reading off a script she'd been rehearsing for weeks. I didn't yell, I didn't beg. I just looked at her and said, I understand. She blinked like she'd expected more of a fight. But I meant it. I understood exactly what she was saying. She wasn't leaving because we'd grown apart, or because we wanted different things. She was leaving because I'd lost my job, because I wasn't the stable, predictable option anymore, because the moment things got hard, she decided I wasn't worth the effort. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. She packed a bag that afternoon, took some clothes, her toiletries, a few books. She said she'd come back for the rest later. I told her to take her time. She left without looking back. I sat there for a while after she was gone, just staring at the door. Part of me felt relieved. Part of me felt like I'd just failed some test I didn't know I was taking. But mostly, I just felt tired. What Kendra didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that 4 days earlier on Friday afternoon, I'd bought a Powerball ticket. It was stupid, really. I'd stopped at a gas station on my way back from a client meeting in Deer Park. The kind of place with flickering fluorescent lights and coffee that tastes like it's been sitting since morning. I had $7 in cash left over after filling up the tank. So I figured why not. I picked my own numbers. My birthday, Kendra's birthday, the date we moved in together. Ironic, considering how that all turned out. I didn't think about it again until the following Saturday night, 4 days after Kendra left, I was lying in bed, alone for the first time in 2 years, scrolling through my phone at 2 in the morning because I couldn't sleep. I saw a news alert about the Powerball jackpot being won in Washington state. Single winner. I almost scrolled past it. Then something made me stop. I got up, walked to the kitchen, and dug through the junk drawer where I'd tossed the ticket. I pulled up the winning numbers on my phone, checked once, checked twice, checked a third time because my hands were shaking so badly I thought I was misreading the screen. Every single number matched. The jackpot was just over $9 million. After taxes and the lump sum reduction, I was looking at $4.8 million, give or take. It was the kind of money that changes everything, the kind of money that erases every problem I'd been drowning in for the past 3 months. I sat there in my kitchen at 2:30 in the morning, staring at that ticket, and I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel relieved. I felt cold. Because all I could think about was Kendra sitting on that couch, telling me I had no future. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents, not my friends, nobody. The next morning, Sunday, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I found a guy in Seattle who specialized in asset protection and wealth management. His name was Richard Volkman, and his retainer alone was $5,000. I paid it with a credit card I knew I'd be able to clear in a few weeks. Volkman didn't ask questions. I told him the situation, lottery win, recent breakup, needed to ensure clean separation of assets. He nodded like he'd seen it 100 times before. "You were smart to call me before claiming the prize," he said. "Timing is everything in cases like this." We got to work immediately. First thing was making sure Kendra had no legal claim to the winnings. We'd been engaged, not married. We'd lived together, but Washington's common law marriage rules didn't apply to us. The ticket was purchased solely in my name, after she'd already told me she was leaving. Volkman documented everything, the date she moved out, the timeline of the ticket purchase, everything. Then we went further. We closed the joint checking account we'd opened when we moved in together. I transferred my half out first, then formally requested closure. I removed her as an authorized user on my credit card. I contacted our landlord and informed him Kendra would no longer be living at the address and that I'd be solely responsible for the lease going forward. Every single financial thread that connected us got severed, one by one. Volkman helped me claim the prize anonymously. Washington state allows lottery winners to remain private if they set up a trust, so that's exactly what we did. The Dylan Mercer Trust collected the winnings. My name never appeared in any public record. No press conference, no oversized check, no local news interview. Just a wire transfer into an account that only I could access. It took 3 weeks to finalize everything. 3 weeks of paperwork and lawyers and sleepless nights where I kept checking my phone, half expecting Kendra to call and ask to talk things through. She never did. She'd moved in with a friend across town, and according to her Instagram, which I checked exactly once before blocking her, she seemed perfectly fine with her decision. Once the money was secured in early November, I made another decision. I was leaving Spokane. There was nothing keeping me there anymore. No job, no relationship, no reason to stay in a place that had become a reminder of everything that had just collapsed. I started looking at properties in Montana, somewhere quiet, somewhere nobody would find me unless I wanted to be found. I found a house in Whitefish just outside Glacier National Park, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, sitting on 2 acres with a view of Whitefish Lake. It wasn't a mansion, but it was beautiful in a way that felt earned. The seller was asking $375,000. I offered $400,000 cash, no inspection, close in 2 weeks. They accepted within an hour. I packed everything I owned into a U-Haul I rented for a weekend. Clothes, books, my computer setup, a few pieces of furniture I actually cared about. Everything else I either sold or left behind. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I deactivated my Facebook and Instagram accounts. I changed my phone number. I updated my address with the post office to a P.O. box in Whitefish. As far as Spokane was concerned, I disappeared. The drive to Whitefish took about 5 hours. I did it on a Wednesday morning in late November 2024, when the roads were clear and the air was cold. I remember pulling up to the house for the first time as the legal owner, stepping out of the truck and just standing there for a minute. The lake was perfectly still. There were pine trees everywhere, and the only sound was wind moving through the branches. No traffic, no neighbors shouting, no Kendra telling me I had no future. I moved in that same day. Spent the first night sleeping on an air mattress in the living room because my furniture wouldn't arrive until Friday. I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I wasn't stupid with the money. I knew 4.8 million could disappear faster than people think if you're not careful. I kept 200,000 liquid for living expenses and emergencies. The rest went into a diversified portfolio, index funds, bonds, some real estate investment trusts. Nothing flashy. Folkman connected me with a financial advisor in Kalispell who specialized in helping people manage windfalls. We met once a month to review everything. I started doing volunteer IT work for some of the local nonprofits in Whitefish. Animal shelters, food banks, a youth center that needed help setting up their network. I didn't tell them about the money. I just showed up, did the work, and left. It felt good to be useful again without it being tied to survival. 3 months went by. Quiet months. Good months. I hiked, I read, I learned how to cook properly instead of just reheating takeout. I met people at the coffee shop in town, had conversations that didn't revolve around work or relationships or money. I started to feel like myself again, or maybe I was becoming someone new. I wasn't sure which, and I didn't really care. Then, in late February 2025, Kendra found me. I was at a coffee shop in downtown Whitefish when I got the first message. It was a Saturday morning, about 2 weeks before the start of March. I'd become a regular there. Small place called The Roasted Bean, decent espresso, good pastries. I'd sit by the window with my laptop, work on some freelance projects I'd picked up just to keep my skills sharp, watch people walk by. Normal stuff. Peaceful stuff. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, but the area code was from Spokane. I almost didn't open it. Then I saw the preview. "Dylan, it's Kendra. We need to talk." I stared at it for a long moment. Deleted it. Went back to my coffee. 10 minutes later, another one came through. "I know you're upset, but please, I just want to explain." I blocked the number. That should have been the end of it. But Kendra was nothing if not persistent. Over the next 3 days, I got messages from 4 different numbers. Some were hers. Some were from mutual friends we'd had back in Spokane, people I hadn't spoken to since I left. "Hey man, Kendra's trying to reach you. Can you at least hear her out? Dylan, she's really sorry about how things ended. Maybe give her a chance." I blocked every single one. Then she started calling. I'd changed my number, but somehow she got the new one. Probably through someone at my old apartment complex, or maybe she convinced one of my old coworkers to dig around. I never picked up. I let every call go to voicemail, and I deleted each voicemail without listening to it. I knew what she wanted. I didn't need to hear her say it. On the 4th day, she showed up in person. I was coming back from a hike up Danneon Trail, still in my boots and thermal layers, when I saw her car parked in my driveway. It was her white Nissan Altima, the one she'd been driving since college. She was sitting inside, engine off, just waiting. When she saw my truck pull up, she got out. I parked, grabbed my backpack, and walked toward the front door without acknowledging her. "Dylan," she called out. Her voice was exactly how I remembered it. Controlled, measured, like she'd practiced what she was going to say. "Dylan, please, just 5 minutes." I stopped at the door, key in hand. I didn't turn around. "You should leave, Kendra." "I drove 6 hours to get here," she said. There was an edge in her voice now, frustration creeping in. "The least you could do is look at me." I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. For a second, I felt the old reflex, the impulse to hear her out, to give her that chance. But I let it die right there. I heard her footsteps on the gravel, coming closer. She knocked. 3 sharp raps, then silence, then 3 more. "I know you're angry," she said through the door. "I know I hurt you, but Dylan, I made a mistake. I was scared when you lost your job. I didn't handle it well. I'm sorry. I want to fix this." I stood there in my entryway listening. Part of me, some small, stupid part, wanted to open the door. Wanted to hear what excuse she'd come up with, what story she'd convinced herself was true. But I didn't. Because I knew exactly what this was. She didn't miss me. She missed what she thought I could give her. "I still love you," she said, quieter now. I never stopped. I walked away from the door, went into the kitchen, made myself a sandwich, turned on the TV. Eventually, I heard her car start up and drive away. That wasn't the end of it, though. She came back 2 more times that week. Once on Tuesday evening, once on Thursday afternoon. Both times I didn't answer. Both times she left after 20 minutes. The third time she left a handwritten letter tucked under my windshield wiper. I threw it away without reading it. I mentioned it to a friend I'd made in Whitefish, guy named Seth who worked as a fishing guide. We'd met at the Roasted Bean in December and had started grabbing beers occasionally. I told him about the ex who wouldn't stop showing up. He asked if I wanted him to talk to her, maybe get her to back off. I told him no, she'd get the message eventually. "Must have been some breakup," he said. "She left me when I lost my job," I replied. "Now she wants back in." Seth raised his eyebrows. "And you're not interested?" "Not even a little bit." He grinned. "Good for you, man. Sounds like you dodged a bullet." What he didn't know, what nobody in Whitefish knew, was the full story. They knew I'd moved from Washington, that I worked in IT, that I was single. That was it. I didn't talk about the lottery, I didn't talk about the money. I lived modestly, drove a used Ford F-150 I'd bought off a local dealer for $18,000, wore the same flannel shirts and jeans I'd always worn. Nobody had any reason to think I was anything other than a guy who'd relocated for a fresh start. Around that same time, I started seeing someone. Her name was Allison Carter. She was 33, worked as a veterinarian at a clinic just outside town. We met at a community potluck in early December 2024, one of those small-town things where everyone brings a dish and stands around talking for 3 hours. She'd brought homemade chili. I'd brought store-bought cookies because I still couldn't cook worth a damn. We started talking about hiking trails, then about her work, then about why I'd moved to Montana. I kept it vague, said I needed a change of scenery after a rough year. She didn't push for details. We exchanged numbers, met up for coffee a few days later, and it just went from there. Easy, natural, no pressure, no expectations. By the time Kendra showed up that first time in late February, Allison and I had been on several dates over the past couple of months. Nothing serious yet, but it was heading somewhere. I told Allison about Kendra after the second visit. Didn't want her getting blindsided if my ex decided to make another appearance. Allison just shrugged and said, "Sounds like she's realizing what she gave up. That's her problem, not yours." I appreciated that. No drama, no jealousy, just a straightforward acknowledgement that my past was my past, and it didn't have to define what came next. Kendra stopped showing up after the third visit, but the messages continued for another 2 weeks. Different numbers, same script. Apologies, regrets, promises that things would be different. I blocked every single one. Eventually, by mid-March, they stopped coming. I found out later, through a mutual acquaintance who reached out on LinkedIn before I blocked him too, that Kendra had been telling people back in Spokane that she and I were on a break, that she'd needed space to figure things out, and now she was ready to work on the relationship. She was painting herself as the one trying to make things right, and me as the stubborn ex who wouldn't give her a chance. It didn't matter. The people who knew the truth knew the truth. The people who believed her version weren't worth correcting. I'd learned a long time ago that you can't control what people think about you. You can only control how you respond. And I chose not to respond at all. By April 2025, Kendra was a footnote. Someone I used to know. Someone who'd made a choice and had to live with the consequences. I didn't hate her. I didn't think about her enough to hate her. I just moved on. Allison and I kept seeing each other. We went cross-country skiing in Glacier, had dinner at her place a few times, took drives around the area exploring small towns. It was simple. It was good. It was everything my relationship with Kendra hadn't been, built on who I actually was, not who someone thought I should be. I still didn't tell Allison about the money. Not because I didn't trust her, but because it didn't matter. She liked me for the person I was when we met, the guy who showed up to potlucks with store-bought cookies and helped her fix her clinic's computer network for free. That was enough. Spring came to Whitefish the way it always does, slowly, reluctantly, like the winter doesn't want to let go. The snow started melting in late March, and by April the trails were passable again. I'd been living there for 5 months by then, and it felt more like home than Spokane ever had. I had routines, I had friends, I had a life that was mine, built on my own terms. Allison and I were still together. We'd settled into something comfortable, seeing each other a few times a week, no rush to define what we were or where we were going. She'd introduced me to her parents over dinner one night in March. They were good people. Her dad was a retired forest ranger. Her mom taught elementary school. They asked me about my work, about why I'd moved to Montana, the usual stuff. I kept my answers honest but vague. They seemed to like me well enough. I'd started doing more volunteer work around town. The youth center I'd helped set up their network asked if I could teach a basic coding class for high school kids. I said yes. It was one afternoon a week, nothing major, but the kids were sharp and genuinely interested. It reminded me why I'd gotten into IT in the first place, before the corporate mergers and the job insecurity and all the noise that comes with trying to build a career in tech. Money wasn't a concern anymore, obviously, but I kept working freelance gigs here and there. Not because I needed the income, but because I needed the structure. I'd seen too many stories about lottery winners who retired immediately and lost themselves. I wasn't going to be one of them. The work kept me grounded, kept me connected to the version of myself I actually respected. I never posted about any of this online. My social media account stayed deactivated. I had no interest in broadcasting my life to people who didn't actually care about it. The friends I had in Whitefish knew me as Dylan, the IT guy who moved from Washington and kept to himself. That was enough. Then, in late May 2025, I got a message that caught me off guard. I was checking my email, the new one I'd set up after leaving Spokane, and saw a name I recognized, Jennifer Kowalski. She'd been Kendra's best friend back when we were together. We'd hung out plenty of times, always got along fine, but we hadn't spoken since the breakup. I almost deleted it without opening it. Then curiosity got the better of me. The email was short. Hey Dylan, I know this is out of the blue, but I wanted you to know something. Kendra's been telling people you won money and that's why you left. She's saying you owe her because you guys were together when you bought the ticket. I don't know if it's true, but I thought you should know what she's saying. Take care. Jen. I read it twice. Then I leaned back in my chair and laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. Of course, Kendra had figured it out. Of course, she was spinning a story to make herself the victim. And of course, she thought she deserved a piece of something she'd walked away from. I didn't respond to Jen's email. There was nothing to say. Kendra could tell whatever story she wanted. The legal reality was ironclad. Folkman had made sure of that. She had no claim to the money. None. The ticket was purchased in my name after she'd left with funds that were solely mine. Even if she tried to take me to court, which I doubted she'd be stupid enough to do, she'd lose, and she'd lose publicly. But I knew Kendra wouldn't take it to court. That wasn't her style. She'd rather whisper to mutual friends, plant seeds of doubt, position herself as the woman who got screwed over by a guy who hit it big. It was easier than admitting she'd made a choice and had to live with the consequences. I forwarded Jen's email to Volkman, just as a precaution. He responded within an hour. Noted. If she makes any formal claims or attempts contact through legal channels, let me know immediately. Otherwise, ignore it. You're protected. So that's what I did. I ignored it. Life kept moving. Allison and I took a weekend trip to Missoula in June. Stayed at a bed and breakfast near the Clark Fork River, explored the downtown area. We talked about taking a longer trip in the summer, maybe down to Yellowstone. She still didn't know about the money, and I still wasn't sure when or if I'd tell her. It wasn't about trust. It was about wanting to know that what we had was real, built on something solid that couldn't be twisted by numbers in a bank account. By July, I'd stopped thinking about Kendra entirely. She was a chapter that had closed. The fact that she was still trying to rewrite it didn't change anything for me. I had no interest in defending myself to people who didn't matter. The people who knew me, really knew me, didn't need an explanation. I ran into Seth at a barbecue that month. He'd heard through the grapevine that my ex had been spreading rumors about me back in Washington. He asked if I wanted to set the record straight. I told him the same thing I'd told myself. People believe what they want to believe. I'm not going to waste energy trying to change their minds. He nodded, cracked open a beer, and said, "Fair enough. You seem happy, man, that's what matters." He was right. I was happy. Not in some loud, performative way, just content. I woke up in a house I owned, in a town I liked, with people around me who gave a damn. I spent my days doing work that mattered, even if it was just teaching teenagers how to write Python scripts or fixing a nonprofit's server issues. I had enough money to never worry about bills again, but I lived like I didn't, and that balance, between security and humility, felt right. The irony wasn't lost on me. Kendra had left because she thought I had no future, but the future showed up anyway. It just showed up after she was gone. And honestly, I wouldn't have had it any other way. If she'd stayed, I would have shared everything with her. I would have tried to make it work. But she didn't stay. She made a calculation, decided I wasn't worth the risk, and walked away. That wasn't cruelty on my part. That was consequence. I never gloated. I never rubbed it in her face. I never sent a message saying, "Look what you missed out on." I just lived my life. I moved on. And that silence, that total, unbreakable silence, was the only response she deserved. People talk about revenge like it has to be loud, like you have to destroy someone, humiliate them, make them pay in some dramatic movie-style confrontation. But that's not how real revenge works. Real revenge is living well. It's building something better without them. It's proving that their absence didn't break you. It freed you. Kendra wanted me to fail. She expected me to crumble, to come crawling back to prove that she'd been right to leave. Instead, I disappeared. I rebuilt. I found peace in a place she'd never see, with people she'd never meet. And when she finally realized what she'd lost, I wasn't there to witness it. Because I'd already moved on. That's the thing about walking away. You don't look back. You don't keep score. You just keep walking. I'm still in Whitefish, here in October 2025. Still with Allison. Still teaching that coding class on Wednesday afternoons. Still volunteering, still hiking, still living a life that's mine. The money's in the bank, managed and invested properly, but it doesn't define me. It's just a cushion, a safety net, a reminder that sometimes luck shows up when you least expect it. Kendra's somewhere back in Spokane, telling her version of the story to anyone who'll listen. I don't know if she's happy. I don't know if she ever thinks about that Tuesday morning when she told me I had no future. I don't really care, because I found my future, and it never included her. If you enjoyed this story, like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.